Hello, this is Graham Campbell from SNP Socialist. I'm co-convener with my co-convener friend, Janis Wilson. Hi, Janis.
Hi, good morning.
And this is another very, very quiet week in politics. God, I don't know why you bother doing this, because it's just nothing happens. It's got nothing at all. So apparently, I don't know if you've been warming up your balaclavas and your dark costumes and outfits, but apparently we're very dangerous individuals to the British state.
Do you know, I was looking through Facebook memories, and here in 2017, Ruth Davidson called us. She suggested that Scottish nationalism was bad, but British patriotism was good. So, it's the same thing regurgitated 7 years later, and it's quite boring, really. I mean, if we're extremists, what on earth are people who voted for Brexit? You'd
have thought they'd have thunked that one through, but they don't think these things through, do they?
No.
And obviously it's the last desperate throes of a guy he knows he's toast, he knows he's out there, so he's just going to keep on saying more extreme things to try and shore up his very, very pathetically dying conservative right-wing leaning.
Yeah, I mean, he's ridiculous. His government is ridiculous. Thankfully, they'll be gone by Christmas. However, what did concern me was Alister Jack trying to give the Lords new powers because they want to build a nuclear reactor in Scotland. And Scotland have put a ban on any new nuclear, so they're trying to kind of circumvent the democracy again of the Scottish Parliament. They're very good at doing this recently, to build something that we don't want and we don't need, which I find absolutely heinous. It's the worst of the worst.
Well, indeed, it is a dreadful thing, and of course he let the mask slip. Well, he's not one of those who's very subtle about it, but he's a colonial governor, and he let that word, the regime, a unionist regime.
Yeah,
sometimes
a
they speak
unionist
the
regime
truth
in
by
place by
accident.
2026.
Yes, we are a unionist regime. That's what we're part of. Scotland needs to leave now, become a democracy, and then we'll leave this nonsense behind. But also, it's that British nationalist empire stuff. And if you ask those people in the empire, they didn't quite like British nationalism very much.
But Ruth loved it, so there we go.
It's sooner Scotland does its bit to as a favour to the world, particularly to the former empire, by breaking up the United Kingdom state, which is still structures an empire. It's one of the reasons why we should be a republic. It's one of the reasons why we should get rid of the monarchy and all the things that are attached to it, because it is not a democratic state. And
even the most
and everything else proves it.
Unionist, of which I have cousins, surely even they would be appalled if they if they knew that these things were being imposed on us. I don't understand how anyone, even if you support the union, can be okay with a democratic government being overruled and decisions being overturned. It's the GRR all over again.
They still have the powers to overthrow it.
Sorry,
they still have the powers to wind up Holyrood. That's one of the things. They can still abolish the Parliament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seems to be one thing after another that, Scotland have these powers, off you go, pretend you've got all these amazing powers, but we will just come and stamp all over you when you do something that we don't like.
And then our political opponents will say, oh, well, why doesn't the Scottish government do this? Well, it hasn't got the powers. You are the ones who support devolution, or at least this version of it. You're the ones who set it up so that it can't do these things that we all say and agree that should be done to tackle poverty, to, massively increase public services, to build more housing. That was a housing bill that's being discussed at the moment. We're having issues around this. We've declared a housing emergency, but we're doing it in the context, quite rightly, because there is one, there has been for a while, but we're doing it in a context where we can't build in anywhere near enough council houses to solve this problem for social rent. Now, we're in a part of the UK that's actually building council houses. We built more in Scotland under the SNP than they've done in the whole of the rest of the UK. Way more. And yet that's still not enough. Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, just come out literally yesterday saying about the need to stop the right to buy, because in England, they've built, 11,000 council houses, but they've sold off about the same number of council houses because they still have the right to buy. We don't. Thank for goodness we don't have that. That's probably saved a lot of people. Both, it's given them a home to live in, a secure, decent rent as well, and also it's reduced the cost of living to those people because those rents haven't gone sky high like they have in England. So it's a major factor that the fact that we've got an SNP government in, that we've got housing built, but even with those limited powers, we've done something with them, but we can't solve a bigger problem as that without the full powers of an independent country. We could probably
kind of comes round to this every week, Graham, doesn't it?
Yeah, every time.
There's so much more we could do. There's so much more we want to do. But it also brings us back to John Swinney being a gradualist and getting more powers and demonstrating what Scotland can do with limited powers. Which kind of builds up momentum. There's a lot I don't agree with him about. But, I think when you sit back and reflect, if he can make Scotland seem appealing to those who voted no in 2014, as something different to what the Labour Party in England, which is just a sad reflection of the Tory party, is offering people in England, then, this kind of gradualist approach to the Scottish elections 2025, 26?
26.
26.
De facto reference.
So it'll be interesting to see what will happen over the next few years if he does manage to get one or two extra powers out of Keir Starmer, who obviously is going to win the next election.
I think we should probably discuss the fact that John's had his first PMQs last Thursday and he had another one today. And obviously there's been some commentary about the way the government has handled its first week with Kate as the deputy first minister. And both of them have said, but particularly John, that our priorities are tackling child poverty and getting economic growth going, And of course, the discussion about whether John's leadership is great for Scotland or not has centred, in terms of the commentators, around what does he mean by stimulating economic growth. There's been two interesting critiques that we've sort of come across. One of them is the one by Jonathan Safey in The National. Jonathan was the founders of the RIC. It's not often that we agree with Jonathan because I think his his understanding of what is left, right, and what in Scottish politics is not the same as mine. But I actually said I had to agree with a lot of what he said about the complacency potentially there is about people uniting behind John and whether that will, restore the SNP's fortune, because essentially we had a left-wing policy program under Nicola, but we've got a direction which is failing to tackle many of the things that we set ourselves the task of tackling, because we've got an economic strategy which isn't, breaking with some of the logics of the market. What do you think? And also that mantra of competency, that sense of, he makes that point that yes, there's things you can do, but he's saying that we are, being complacent if we think that just our temporary fix of getting the government together on its own will revitalize the independence movement. I think that was one take. The other take was, I think it was Leslie Riddick, actually. Leslie Riddick was quite, I think, interesting in talking about an industrial strategy. There's been two really important industrial stories this week. John Swinney went to Ardisia to look at that turbine factory, which is a great piece of good news for the economy because it's all part of that green ports thing that we didn't agree with. But nonetheless, there's industrialization coming back to Scotland, things being built that we need, in renewable energies, but it's all foreign owned. None of it is produced in Scotland by Scottish people living here, so it's not necessarily building up our industrial base. But we've also got the Caledonian Works in my area, Springburn, which looks like it's going to reopen to now finally fix electric trains. That was the reason why it closed before, because it didn't produce electric trains. It fixed diesel trains at 40 years old, but now it's going to be invested in, it's going to be connected to the grid, and we're going to have a railway engineering depot back in Springburn. That's good news. These are two good news stories with real behind. But is the strategy right? Is it looking at reindustrializing the economy, localizing the economy, looking at the Green New Deal type, investment in the economy, that kind of economy? Is it, I don't see the imagination really coming yet. It seems to be blown in the market to deliver these things. So Jonathan Shafi saying we shouldn't have blind faith in people. Nobody should have we have to earn that trust. But it's looking like we have a very conventional approach to economic growth. So that's my concern, that we're pretty, limited in what our government can do, and therefore it's limited in what it's asking to do. What do you reckon? I mean,
I've never had blind faith in any politician. Politicians have got to earn trust and faith. And John Swinney, I don't think he's done enough to prove to people that he has earned that place. I think 6 months' time, he may well have done enough to bring back the fortunes of the party. I still view him as someone who will unite the party. He's going to piss off a lot of the left, and he might not go far enough for a lot of the kind of Fergus Ewings, but we need a unified party, I think, if we're going to win the election, and we need a way forward. We need policy. We need policies that can appeal to a broad church. And radical, yeah, of course, he could be a bit more radical for me, but then I'm extremely left-wing. So I don't think we should have blind faith in him. I think we should wait and see how things develop and how things pan out. Yeah.
Well, I'll judge the economic policy that the government comes out with by whether the growth that it promotes is inclusive growth. If it does involve, I mean, I don't have the faith in the market economy to deliver this, because I think we've shown with the experience of our entire lifetimes that it doesn't deliver unless the state strongly intervenes with equalizing policies to share that growth. That is industrializing, empowers communities, well-being economy, all of those things, which I liked about the last government's programme, which are not being said now. And that is my difficulty, is how that's completely disappeared from the language, from titles of the government, in officers, from the ministers' roles and responsibilities. That needs to come back, because I don't see how they can, be still breaking from the Westminster model of doing politics if they don't also break from the Westminster model of doing economics, because that is one of the reasons why we want independence. It's
well, as long as you just be copyless versus less trust, then I'll be quite happy. No, I think, I don't know how things are going to pan out. We need to see what he can achieve, I think.
We can need to see if he can get his government budget passed and his programme for government passed. So I wish him luck in that, because obviously he's going to have to make compromises with other parties, but the kind of compromises I hope he won't make is the ones which give too many concessions to multinational capitalists, while at the same time building things that people need: health services, homes, etc., and also infrastructure that we actually need, to make the just transition. So I'm looking forward to seeing what their strategy for achieving net zero and just transition is, and how they want to deal with the housing emergency. Our jury is out and court is dismissed, and we'll see you next week to see what they've done.
Okay, brilliant.